Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 17 of Shutter Nonsense. This is technically our, holiday/Christmas episode, but both of us totally forgot about it. We were going to try to wear Santa Claus hats or something, but it's early September, so why would we be thinking about that? But anyways.
It feels really weird to be thinking Christmas in September.
Yeah, and speaking of that, actually, I had, and I apologize, I know who it is. I'm just drawing a blank right now. I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram asking about my upcoming trip and where in Colorado I was going. I was like, what trip? Oh, you mean the one that was 2 months ago. So the recording timeline, once again, just to throw it out there, like it's, what is it, September 12th, and this is coming out December 16th on Patreon and December 23rd. So
23rd,
we're a little off kilter, but with our busy fall schedule, we'll get a little closer to not quite real time recording and release, but a little closer than we are right now. We're trying to get a good runway. October, I think we mentioned last week's episode, we basically don't have any time to record in October except maybe one day, and November is not a whole lot better, so we know we'll lose a lot of runway coming up here fairly soon. So, and Jeffrey, I know you're under the weather. You just told me you tested positive for COVID. So if Jeffrey sounds a little weird or he jumps in and out a little bit in the editing, it might be because I'm editing out some sniffles and coughs. So.
Yes, I'm trying to be not sniffly, not coughy, and stuff. But
we'll allow
I wish
it.
you luck on the edit.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I woke up yesterday with a pretty bad sore throat. I'm hoping it was just, I feel better today, but it might have just been allergies. I went out and did another conditioning hike at the local park, and then I came home and mowed, and then did some pruning of trees. So ragweed and that is pretty high here right now. So I'm hoping maybe I just got a bunch of stuff stirred up in the old lungs, and that's all it was. So anyways, nothing like COVID. I can't complain too much.
No.
So other than being laid up a little bit this week, you have anything new to share? Or I know you were taking it pretty easy. Yeah,
I'm slipping behind for the most part. I had some, it'll relatively fitting for the today's episode. I had some prints come in because of the way the podcast timeline works. The art fair I do is next week. So I had another series of prints come in, and I'm going to be matting and having available. And then there's a photography contest the fair does too, and I have those prints anxiously awaiting them because I'm getting really close to the deadline on that one. And I actually messaged them today because normally who I get them from is pretty quick to ship, and they haven't shipped them yet. So I had to message them, and is this going to be here by Wednesday of next week? So we'll see what happens.
Fingers crossed for you.
But yeah, for the most part, I'm making a list of things I'm falling behind on.
We'll just add another episode to it. Not that
exactly.
Yeah, your work comes after I edit, so you've got some leeway there.
Yes.
Let's see. What did I work on this week? A lot of it's been kind of behind the scenes stuff again. So once again, I've not done any photo editing this week. I was thinking maybe I could get a edit of a Colorado video knocked out, and haven't had a chance to touch that. But I've been working on trying to put some emphasis on my website with SEO and putting together some ideas for lead magnets around trying to get some more people signing up for my email newsletter that's potentially more interested in workshops and prints specifically, as opposed to just kind of the scattered shotgun spread of just kind of grabbing people on anything and everything. So been working on kind of planning that stuff out. I had mentioned a couple episodes ago, I think it was, that I was working on that trip planning / checklist app, and it was going really, really, really smoothly. And then I fit like one roadblock on linking a button to a certain task that's pretty critical. So I'm waiting on support to get back to me on that. So that's been held up. I had to submit a Wix ticket for something. So yeah, it's just been kind of a like troubleshooting / back end administrative kind of week. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really did.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really been the gist of it for me, I think. So we can just kind of jump on into it. So this week we wanted to follow up, ironically, again, in the weird timeline we're in right now. We just released publicly our episode about printing, where Jeffrey kind of picked my brain around my experience with printing and kind of getting started and weighing the pros and cons of doing it yourself and buying a printer versus sending it off to a third-party print lab, and all the pros and cons of that as well. And now here we are recording a follow-up episode for 3 months later. even though the episode just came out. But we wanted to talk more about the business side of things. And I guess fortunately, we've got at least one person that's already messaged. I can't remember if it was me directly or on Patreon, but throwing it out there that they would like to hear more about the business side of things. So again, as best as Jeffrey can with his COVID-inflicted voice and cough, he's going to kind of run this one and pick my brain about it, because obviously I've been pushing the print side of things for several years now. And Jeffrey, obviously you sell prints too, so by all means.
But you've got, I have the prints too, but you've been doing it longer, and I think have a lot more thought into it. And I'm actually hoping to pick up some tips and stuff from you, just because you've got that experience with it and what's worked well for you and what doesn't. Right. So I think it makes good sense for me to sort of lead you through a series of questions and get your expertise out, because I do. It's definitely an area you're stronger in than I am.
I don't know, ironically, not this year.
Well,
so to that end too, like you can also talk to, if we have time to get into it, like the art fair thing. I haven't gotten into that, like I said in one of the previous episodes. I've thought about it, but the upfront cost investment and the work that's entailed, I can't quite convince myself it's something I want to do, let alone that it would really be worth the upfront investments on it. So if we have time, we can chat to that if it comes up naturally in the conversation. So I'll hand it off to you to throw me the first curveball, or hopefully not curveball, but you know what I mean.
It might be a curveball. No, right. I think, the business side of printing, and again, that's what the focus is on this episode. Michael and I both encourage people to print your photos just for your own enjoyment, self-pleasure, putting it up in your house, sharing with family, friends, because it's just a really great way to complete that process. But with the focus being on business side of printing, I think the obvious first question, and the one that I think a lot of people struggle with, whether they have a business background or not a business background, is just that pricing aspect of it. How do you price? And we can break this question down into smaller pieces and parts, but I think hopefully with you and I, with enough back and forth, we'll get out the key pieces. But I mean, I think that's a daunting thing. I've got this print. How do you price it? Is there a formula you're using? Is there, and to set the stage a bit, there's people that say 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the cost of the print. I think there's some other things to consider beyond just the cost of the print, which I'll let you weigh in on as well. So are you multiplying by those other outside things, or what? So what's your approach to pricing? Let's start there, and then we'll go.
We'll go from there. I mean, it is a struggle. It's something I would say I still struggle with, especially in a year like this, where, again, I've talked about it several times now, but 2024 was a great year for me, or at least maybe not great is the right word, but my best year in terms of print sales. And then 2025 has just fallen off of a cliff. I think just with all the economic uncertainty and everything, we'll just leave it at that. But I mean, and of course, at forefront of mind when you have a rough year like I'm having is, am I priced too high? But then past experience with last year would kind of counter that thought process. And ironically, I guess you could say, is I actually raised my prices this year. I haven't done so in, I think it had been almost 3 years. And of course, with the pandemic and everything, material cost has gone up. Third-party print fulfillment has gone up in price. Shipping has definitely gone up in price. So it was kind of that, like, my sales are down this year, but from a business standpoint, like, I need to do it. Right. But anyways, I guess kind of backing up before we go down that path, it's like the first thing I've always done is I go out and look at what are other people pricing at, and people that I suspect are doing well, or that I know that are doing well with their print sales, people that I feel are at a level of quality of work and or quality of print offerings that I feel would be comparable to what I'm A, producing, and B, utilizing in terms of materials and everything like that. So that's kind of the first thing. Is I've got like maybe 5 photographers that I'll go out and kind of take a look at and see where they're at. Because obviously, I think one of the things we can get into is I think a lot of photographers vastly undersell themselves. But also, you don't want to be on the flip side of it and have your stuff priced way, way too high and kind of price yourself out of the market. Yeah, and it's tough because even some of the names that I really respect and I suspect that they do decently well with prints, some of their pricing is shockingly low to where I look at it and it's like there's no way you're accounting for everything that goes into print production, essentially. So I start with looking at quote unquote competitors, and I've actually got my spreadsheet. So of course I have a spreadsheet.
I was going to say, you've already answered a couple of questions. One, like how many other photographers do you go look at, like to get your average? And I assumed you have a spreadsheet behind that where you're sort of averaging out what's the high, low, median, all of that stuff to sort of gauge your price. And you said you are comparing like materials and sizes, I assume. So metals to metals, fine art prints to fine art prints, and sizes and everything to find your path.
Just looking at my spreadsheet. So I basically have 3 offerings. I have my artist series prints, which are the ones I produce myself on the printer here behind me, using the fine art Red River paper Paladuro etching 315 that I've talked about that I love so much. So those I kind of...
Affiliate links below.
Yeah, affiliate links below for Red River. So those I feel like are the most personal prints I make, obviously, because I'm making them myself. I'm literally watching it come off the printer, and if there's something that I'm not 100% with, I can make the adjustments in Lightroom and reprint. And I think I talked about I market those as ready to frame. So they're... what I see is truly a fine art print offering produced by me personally, quote unquote, produced by the artist, hence the artist series nomenclature. And I don't offer framing on them. I don't offer matting on them, just from a shipping logistics standpoint more than anything. And I know we've got some potential questions around the shipping and that too. But so those are marketed as ready to frame, meaning they'll come to you and then the buyer is responsible for how they want to present it, whether they want to mat it, frame it, take it to a professional framer, buy something off the shelf like a Michaels or whatever. That's entirely up to the buyer. I've thought about offering consultation on that. I go back and forth, and I offer art consultations anyways, but it's more around like finding the right photo for your space. I haven't pushed it quite so much from like the aesthetics of the final framing and stuff like that. But anyways, avoiding too much of a tangent there, then I've got, so in addition to the artist series, I've got my metal offerings, which I, again, mentioned in a previous episode. I just recently, quote unquote, discontinued my canvas offerings, mainly because New Mexico Fine Art, the third-party lab I prefer to use, they discontinued offering canvas prints, which was kind of a more affordable way to do it. And I know there's a lot of kind of looking down on canvas in general, and certainly you can get some bad looking canvas, but personally I'm a little disappointed that NMFA discontinued it, although I understand the reasoning for it. But if you have a good lab producing canvases for you, they can look really, really sharp. But anyways, I discontinued that, so it was a little bit more like my mid-tier pricing standpoint. I've since replaced it with metal, which is kind of like, it's more expensive than canvas, but it still falls kind of that mid-tier level between my artist series prints and then the final offering I have, which is the acrylics, which is I also use NMFA for my fulfillment of my acrylic prints. And the thing I like about NMFA there is you basically got 3 different options you can go with on their acrylics. They've got the standard high gloss. They've got the True Life acrylic, which is reduced glare. I'm not going to say it's glare free. And then they just started offering in the last few months their matte gloss, or their matte acrylic, which actually looks really good. I got a sample of it. Well, anyways, I'm not going to dig it out to show it on camera here, but it's, of course, there's still like that softbox glow if you've got a direct source of light, like a studio light or a single bulb or whatever, but there's no glare. You're not going to see a reflection of its surroundings on it. So those are the ones that I prefer to recommend if somebody asks me. But anyways, so the metal and the acrylic, I frame those as my ready to hang. Because again, as we discussed in the previous print episode, those come with all the mounting hardware and everything that somebody needs. Just take them out of the box and hang them on their wall. And a more modern aesthetic than what I'm producing on the printer here, where I'm trying to go for, again, that more classical fine art. Yeah, you're going to frame it. You're probably going to mat it and have it displayed on your wall a little more traditionally, whereas the metal and acrylic doesn't necessarily need that. Although, again, that's something I offer through NMFA is framing through our consultation. I'll work with people on that too, since NMFA does the fulfillment drop shipping. I'll let them worry about sending framed prints and not put that burden on myself as an individual printer. For sure. So yeah, I feel like I've gone on a tangent, but I've got the 3 different print offerings. So each of those, obviously, I've got separate tabs on my spreadsheet. So I've got my Artist Series tab, my Metal tab, and my Acrylic tab. And really, from a competitive research standpoint, I go out and look at everybody. I don't actually include competitive pricing on the spreadsheet. Basically, what I'm including is all of the actual cost factors, and just like getting into it with the Artist Series fine art prints. Those are quote unquote the cheapest to produce, because I'm buying the paper directly. If I'm printing on a roll versus a sheet, there's a little bit of financial advantage in terms of printing off the roll, but then you've got to think, do I have to do the trimming and everything? So you've got probably more of a time factor there that I think a lot of people don't necessarily truly account for. So my Artist Series prints, I've got it split out. Let me update the worksheet. I had it filtered. So I've got it split out by size from smallest to largest, what aspect ratio is, just from a knowledge standpoint from when I'm looking at it. And then, like, if I'm doing a cut sheet, so if I buy a package of the Palladuro etching and it's 11 by 14 or 16 by 20, I can do those on pre-cut sheets. 13 by 19 I can do on a pre-cut sheet. Then when I start getting up into the roll sizes, I've got a 17-inch roll and a 24-inch roll, getting into that. But the cut sheets are easy enough because you just, Red River, in my case, provides the cost per sheet. For the roll printing, I had to do the calculation of how much the roll cost, how much square footage or square inches are on each roll, and then calculate it out for each different size print. So I've done all that calculation for the paper cost. And then I also have the ink cost factored in for the prints I'm producing myself. And I can't speak to Epson. I assume they've got something similar. For Canon, you've got their, what is it called? Accounting something or other. I don't have my keyboard. I set it aside for recording. But anyways, it's a way that you can go in and look at you can actually enter in the cost of the paper, and then it'll also calculate the cost of the ink for the different sizes that you've printed. So I've pulled that and like if it's a size I haven't happened to print yet, I've at least got an estimated cost per sheet. So right there, I've got my materials cost. So I've got paper cost, ink cost, and I've got a column for materials cost, which is just a total of those 2 things. For the US, I do offer, I hate the way commercial aspects is all like free shipping. It's not free. It's, of course, the cost is factored in. I don't care who you're buying from.
It's baked in there somewhere.
Right, exactly. So that's another cost that I incur that I want to make sure I'm accounting for. Maybe I don't account for it dollar for dollar, but generally I do. And for my shipping, it's all based on estimates because it can fluctuate from sending out one print to the next, just like my box sets. The first box set I sent out was one price for shipping. The second one I sent out was a little bit different. So it's all estimated, loose best guesses based on point in time when I ran all of the analysis on this. So I've got shipping costs factored in, which I don't know that people necessarily account for consistently when they're pricing their work. I would say if there's things that people forget about, it's probably the ink, shipping, and then your time would be the 3 things that I feel like photographers don't necessarily appropriately factor in when they're pricing their work. I've also,
so on the time thing, let's think about, so there's time to print, right? You get the order and then the clock starts. I have to find the file. I have to send it to the printer. I have to get it. And then you're timed. If you say, let's use rolled paper. So you're trimming, unless you're planning on talking about this later, do you factor time in to capture the image or is there any element of what it took to get the image that factors into your pricing?
To me, that's where the markup comes in. And, that's tough too, because it's like, well, if I think I'm only going to sell one print, do I try to recoup my entire cost in the sale of one print? Like that's not realistic.
Super expensive print, right?
But odds are you're not going to be selling even 10 or 20 prints either. So it's a little bit of a
Right.
fuzzy logic there in terms of determining that.
Agreed.
I've got it noted as labor cost, time cost, whatever. I account for basically an hour of my time to get the file in Lightroom, do any proofing if I haven't already done the soft proofing on it, print a test copy, print out the final version, package it up, get it to the post office or UPS or however I'm shipping it. Frankly, my time is probably more than an hour, but I factor in an hour just again if it's something I've already proofed, then it's not going to take as long. So, it
sort of works itself out.
Yeah, it kind of balances out in the grand scheme of things. So those are my factors that go into determining kind of what is my baseline cost basis. So I've got the paper cost, ink cost, aka the two of those combined as the materials cost, and I've got cost of shipping, and then factoring in just an hourly rate essentially for what I figure my time is worth, and especially factoring in the fact that as a self-employed, I'm basically losing a third of it right off the top from a tax basis. So then I come up with my total cost, and then I've got a column for my markup target rate, which gets me like a baseline, and then from there I'll round up or down to get it to a quote unquote normal price. Instead of like $146.04, it's $149.
Gotcha.
And then I have a column just calculates what my actual markup ended up being, so that I can see, am I still in line with what I wanted to aim for in terms of that final markup. In terms of the do you do 2 times, 3 times, 4 times? Mine ranges based on the size of the print. I have markup a little bit higher on the larger sizes, just because even though I'm still just accounting for an hour of my time, I know those larger sizes, especially when you're coming off of the roll of paper versus a cut sheet, you're going to have to flatten it or reverse roll it to flatten the curl out of it. Then you got to potentially roll it the opposite direction anyways to put it into a tube and do all that packing and everything. The one thing I don't have on here, actually, I just kind of realized from a materials cost standpoint, is the actual shipping materials too. Like my smaller prints, I can ship in a flat package. My larger ones, I'm shipping in a roll tube. So I've got to have the tubes of the right size. I guess the downside of the thicker fine art paper I use is I can't roll them real tightly. So I need bigger diameter tubes. And then depending on how I'm shipping it, I might put the tube inside of a postal service prepaid box or what have you. So there's factors like that I'm not really accounting for, which I guess I'm technically making up for in the fact, like I said, I run a higher markup rate as the size of the print goes up. So, I basically, on my artist series, I think they're pretty well the same actually across all 3 options. But on my artist series, it's about 2 to just under 3% markup, depending on the size of the print. And then from there, I figure out, okay, what's my profit?
Percent or X?
X. Yeah, definitely not percent. Okay. Not bumping it up 2%. No, X.
Man, those are some lean margins.
Yeah, 2X to just under 3X markup.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Which is pretty industry standard. And then once I get my final retail price set on the spreadsheet, then I'll go back out and look at competitors again and just double check, like, okay, am I still coming out at a reasonable price point? And then I just have 2 columns for profit, where I don't factor in the time aspect of it, and then profit with time based into it. So again, that's just more from an accounting standpoint. So like I said, I think where the new photographer that's just getting into selling prints, if they're printing them themselves, I think where you probably are potentially missing is that ink cost, factoring in how you're handling shipping. Also, shipping an 11 by 14 is not going to be the same as shipping a 24 by 36 or 24 by 60 or what have you. And then the time factor as well. And I think the time is probably the biggest one. We've all seen photographers that are selling a 16 by 20 print for like $50, and it's like there's no way you're making any kind of true profit off of that I mean, even if I look at just, I do 17 by, oh, well, I'm on a 2 by 3. So I do 17 by 22 for 16 by 20, essentially print. I print it off on the roll. So 17 by 22, my cost, once I factor in my time, is almost double that $50 price point that I've seen some photographers listing it at. Now,
Right.
if you're going through a third party, as we discussed in the previous episode, there are some economies of scale there in terms of materials cost is probably going to be less because you're going through a big print lab that's able to get that economy of scale and bulk pricing and what have you. Your time that you're personally investing is not going to be as great. They are going to be charging you shipping, so you probably still want to factor that in, which I do on my metal and acrylic prints. But there's going to be a different set of factors that you need to consider. This, for my artist series, is all about the cost I incur printing on myself on the printer I've got. And also, that markup you asked about, how does that kind of factor in terms of time? So I've got my labor, my kind of baseline 1 hour of labor factored in, and then I've got the markup target. That also needs to ensure that I can cover the ongoing cost. At some point, I'll have to spend several $100s to replace the print head on the printer.
Right.
I talked about I dropped $1,800 on a full ink set not too long ago, on top of the $2,500 I spent just to buy the printer with the starter ink kits. You've got your maintenance cartridge, which, if I remember correctly, for this particular printer is like $150. So there's still things that aren't getting factored into my cost basis that are cost. In terms of like the business asset, it's a depreciating asset because over time it loses value, blah, blah, blah. But that's all getting into taxes and accounting. But, it's factoring all of those elements of it too. Like, this printer's not going to last forever. So when it comes time to replace it, am I setting myself up to replace it out of the profits I've made off of past print sales and things like that? So there's a whole lot of things you got to factor in. Again, if you're going through a third-party lab, that stuff is factored into what they're charging you, so you don't have to account for that, but they are accounting for it when they come up with the pricing for you. So that was a long dive just into my artist series.
Yes.
From the metal and the acrylic, and again, those would be the ones that I don't produce myself, obviously, but I go through New Mexico Fine Art. So for those, I don't factor in a paper cost. I just have the cost that they charge me, which I'm part of their pro photographer program, so I do get a discounted rate from what they charge, just Joe Schmo coming in and printing something on a one-off basis. So I've got the cost to me that they would charge me for whatever size print. I've got shipping costs factored in, which they've got a PDF that they provide their pros with in terms of what they charge for shipping in different sizes, which that's one great thing about NMFA is they set those and then they're not constantly changing them on you. So if you want to do what I'm doing and like set up your spreadsheet and at least for like, hey, 6-12 months, this is what it's going to cost me to print through NMFA. And if they change pricing, they're usually pretty good about notifying and providing updated PDF kind of tables so you can go back and recalculate. So I've got my baseline cost of purchasing the print, so to speak, from them. I factor in what they're going to charge me for shipping because I'm still providing quote unquote free shipping to people within the US. So I've got my total NMFA cost, and then I still factor in that hour of time. Even though I'm not having to do the packaging and everything, it's still covering the time to proof it.
Yep.
I've thought about actually doing proofing prints using the identical papers that they use. A little metal, you can't, and it's not going to be apples to apples, but certainly for the acrylic, the type of paper they use under the acrylic. Mm-hmm. I'm not currently doing that, but still there's that proofing time that goes into it, and proofing for NMFA is different than proofing for my artist series print. So I can't just use the same proof copy that I've already got for an artist series print. I've got to create another proof version based on the parameters that NMFA provides for their proofing recommendations. So there's still a time factor in there. And then I've got my total cost, and then again, a markup range that just varies depending on the size and the price point that I want to be at, and so on and so forth. And again, I'll look at other photographers out there and kind of get a baseline of what they're charging and make sure I'm within a reasonable window, so to speak, in terms of pricing. But yeah, it's tough because, at the end of the day, everybody has different goals. There are people out there selling prints, not because they're doing photography really as a business, but just because somebody, hey, I'd like to get a print from you. And they may not feel that there's a need to factor in all those different variables in terms of paper cost, ink cost, time cost, shipping cost, blah, blah, blah. They're just like, yeah, cool, I'll send you a print. And, maybe they're just happy to break even and charge shipping or something. So everybody's going to be unique in that regard. But the other thing to factor in, and this gets so tough because, again, it's such a personal thing, but thinking about it from a standpoint of not underselling yourself, but also not underselling the market in terms of the more people that undersell their prints in terms of price point, the more it kind of diminishes the value of prints in the broader public view, in my opinion.
Right.
So if you've got people out there selling a 24 by 36 for $100, and then I charge, I don't even know what a 24 by 36 is. I would charge $329.
Right. Big difference.
Random person out there might go, well, Michael's ripping people off, but I'm not. Right. I promise you.
Right,
I think I'm being fair, and honestly, I think that's still a pretty reasonable price in terms of the grand scheme of things. So, there's all those factors that go into it too. But anyways, we've already spent like 40 minutes talking about just the pricing. But I think that's probably the toughest piece of it is how do you land on the pricing?
Right. And I think you bring up a lot of important considerations that people miss. It's the time, it's the ink. You covered the outsourcing your printing. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the things that people mistake. And even if you hear the 2 times, 3 times, 4 times cost, it is important. What was that cost? Mm-hmm. It's not just the paper. It's not just this or that. So I think it's important for people to hear because it's at the root of it all. You got to have confidence in your pricing. And even if you've been doing it for a while, I mean, you even said coming into this, is my pricing? It's one of those things that's hard to find because you're trying to find that right price point. So for like a newer photographer that's going to make a go at this business of printing, let's put some rails on it and say, 2, 3, 4 times is good to avoid the undercutting, right? We don't want to encourage undercutting the market. But do you think they should just go with a solid 3x of their time and their costs that they've figured based on this, or should they start low, maybe a 2x instead, or a 2.25, and then after they gauge demand, how would you test the market? Would you go in at what you think it's all worth and see how it pans out, or go in a little low?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how to test the market as a new photographer? Again, keeping the line on, we're not out to undercut somebody and just move. We're trying to make it a profitable business, not I sold 10 prints at a loss. That doesn't count.
Right. Or I sold 10 prints at such a low margin that it took me all day to prep them and everything and ship them.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, I made $50. Like, you can't make a living just based on. You'd have to do such a high volume at a low price point. So again, if you're doing it truly from a business aspect, which is technically what this episode is about, it's not for the hobbyist that's just, grandma wants to buy a print or my friend wants to buy a print or whatever. So from a business standpoint, you've got to factor that in. Like if you want to build your business centered on prints, which I don't recommend because A, it's a tough game. B, as we've all seen, and again, as my 2024 to 2025 example goes, like there's an ebb and flow. So you don't want your business just hinging on one pillar, as I like to frame it. But so you've got to factor in, like, if I was selling enough prints that it took me an entire day to fulfill orders, would I be, at the end of the day, would I have made enough profit to account for the time and the material cost and the shipping cost, et cetera, to have made that day of work worth my while? Could I, is it a livable wage, so to speak? And if the answer is no, then you're underpriced.
Gotcha.
I mean, ultimately, what I would say for somebody starting out is if you're not even getting inquiries about prints, I don't know that I would jump into offering prints just yet. I at least, granted it was like friends and family and coworkers, but I had some inquiries coming my way when I decided to to set up the SmugMug site that I had originally before I switching over to my Wix based site. But if there's no interest being shown, then it probably isn't worth the time investment just yet to set all of this up. Now, there could be the counter argument of, well, I don't have print sales set up, so I'm not getting inquiries. So it is a little bit of like, well, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Yeah. And then you do have the supply versus demand factor. And of course, the classic supply versus demand curve of where they overlap is where you should have your pricing based at. So starting out, probably a little lower, whether that's just looking at like 1.5x, 2x of cost. Again, I can't really answer that definitively. It's everybody's got to come up with that on their own in terms of what ultimately is worth it.
And I think that's important too. I think that's important too, right? Like there is no magic formula. You've laid out a very clear thing, but at the end of the day, the variable still remains, even if you use specific numbers, is what do you want as a living wage? What feels to you as a profitable thing? And what I think, what you think, what so-and-so thinks might be different, which could influence your price, and you could still fall into that. This is a profitable business, but because of where you feel your profit, what you're comfortable with, could shift within that. So I think that's important. It's almost more understand what goes into the formula, and then make sure you account for that, and then apply what works for you. But at the end of the day, make sure you're getting at least a livable wage out of it.
Right. Yeah. If you're not, then it's the question of, okay, well, what else could I be doing with my time to potentially make more money? From a business standpoint, you've got to look at those things, and you may not have anything else in terms of like just starting out with a business. You may not have something that, oh, well, I spent 5 hours printing today and I came away with $75 of income essentially. Okay, well, I could have taken those 5 hours and done something else to have made more than $75. But if you're just starting out, maybe you couldn't have. I've got the majority of my days. It's not like I can just do a 180 and say, oh, well, instead of pushing prints today, I should have done X and I could have made $300 today. Like, unless I'm selling a workshop ticket or something, like we're in a type of business where I'm not, it's not like a retail shop where like, oh, instead of selling this $5 product, I should have sold this $25 product. And like, you don't have that kind of immediate direct control. But again, to what I was saying when we were kind of talking about what we've been up to, like, I've got an 8-page marketing document that I've produced in terms of what I want to do in terms of updating my website and offering some lead magnets around workshops. And I've done the same for prints. So there's also that intangible factor too. Like, okay, I spent 5 hours, I made $75, but could my time have been better served to work on that more administrative stuff to, it's kind of what we do now pays off 6 months from now kind of thing.
Right. Makes sense.
It's such an art versus a science. The other factor of it is, and this is probably more as you get into being more of an established artist and selling prints more regularly, but the marketing aspect and consumer perceptions is so weird too with us humans. But if you sell your work or you price your work extraordinarily high compared to other people, sometimes that can actually drive sales because somebody sees it as like, oh, it's better quality, or even though it may not be, it's just that consumer perception. So again, it's such an art versus a science. And you can talk to one person, they'll tell you one thing. You can talk to me and I'll tell you something else. You can talk to a third person and they'll tell you something completely contradictory to what the first two told you. And everybody's got to kind of find their path, but hopefully what we're talking about here at least gives you things to think about when determining how you want to move forward on that path.
Right. So, sort of, where we get these prints from, you sort of have a mixed model. You've got your artist, produced series, which is very hands-on. You got a printer sitting behind you. You do all the work there, and then you use a third party for the metals and the acrylics. If you're new to this and thinking about it, what are some things to consider if you're trying to make that decision? Should I print my own fine art prints at home, or should I consider outsourcing it? I'm sure you had thoughts and ideas that went into that, but what factors would weigh into that decision?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say go back and listen to episode 9 because we talked about a lot of that. But again, in my mind is like, oh, we just talked about this, but it's really because I just listened to the episode 9 release that hit last week because, I always want to make sure it uploaded correctly and everything. But anyways, we did touch on a lot of this already with that first print discussion. So again, and just kind of recapping, thinking about if I go through a third-party lab for everything, the thing you give up the most is the control over the quality, having the hands-on, and all of that factor. The big benefit you get is the economies of scale, less time needed from you. You've still got to do your proofing, but they're doing all the production and packaging and shipping for you, so there's a time savings there. If you do think you want to go down the path, and again, I'm just recapping this, we go into this quite a bit more in episode 9, but if you do think you want to go down the path of producing your own prints like I am, then yeah, you've got to factor in, okay, if I spend $1,500 on a kind of medium-sized printer or $2,500 on a bigger printer, or I go crazy and I buy a 44-inch for $3,500 or whatever they are these days, how am I going to recoup that cost? If you're just starting out and you've had like 2 people inquire about prints, it's going to take you a long time to recoup your cost. I bought my printer in 2021, and I'll be the first to admit, like I haven't done a great job of marketing my prints. I haven't done huge sales, even with 2024 being a good year for me. But I'm probably about broken even between the cost of the printer and the cost of the ink. I'm in this more for the long-term aspect of it and hoping I can continue to build this side of my business over time. But in 3-4 years of really printing seriously, I'm kind of broken even just on the hardware. I mean, that's not accounting for paper and time and all of those factors. So again, we go more into this in that past episode, but yeah, a lot of factors. I would probably, and I think we said this in episode 9, but if you're just starting out, I would probably go through a third party that is well recommended and can be trusted. And again, typically I would recommend avoiding one of the big mass production labs and going more with a boutique like a New Mexico Fine Art, where you're going to have a little bit more attention to detail, a little bit more personalized one-on-one assistance as you need it. But ultimately, that's up to you too. But probably going third party is the smart financial decision starting out. And then if you decide you want greater control or you just want to do it yourself for the joy of it or what have you, then you can start looking at that bigger equipment investment for your home office.
Yep. Yeah, for me, it was a lot of, I have a printer. There's a Pro 100 sitting back there with clogged ink nozzles at the moment. But for me, it was just, and to print well is just like, it's a whole other realm of technical knowledge, right? Like you're well-versed in it and understand it. But anytime I hang out in one of your guys' printing discussion forums, it's just like, I don't know if I have the brain capacity to go into there. So that's one of the reasons. And there's nuances to printing third party, right? Mm-hmm. You still have to understand color profiles and, do test prints with them and see which way they lean or don't lean or anything like that. So it's not that third party's like, the easy path either. But I do agree. If you're starting out, you can bring some of the hurdles down. And if you find yourself really liking that hands-on, and I get it, it's a photography, we used to develop stuff in dark rooms. You got that hands-on, and now you can sort of get that hands-on, see it come off the printer. So I totally get that. But yeah, switching from there,
quickly to finalize, third party is going to have by far the least financial risk because you're really, other than the cost of the print itself, you have no upfront investment you've got to make. So factor that in
that's
too.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
So print sales, where do we sell our prints? I know how you tend to sell your prints, but to set the stage, you've got your online print sales through your own website. You've got people that try to get into galleries, whether it be a full-on art gallery or a local art gallery or a local business that puts pictures on their walls to sell. I'm thinking like a coffee shops will sometimes, hang your stuff here and maybe you'll sell one. To art fairs, which we don't have to dive into art fairs at the moment, but I know how you've chosen. Why don't you tell folks for how you chose, and I don't know what we should know about that, and why you chose that route, and maybe why shy away from something or anything like that. As far as
so I'm trying to do it entirely through my online store, and obviously promoting it to my email subscribers and whatnot. I've questioned that a lot, as I alluded to at the beginning of this episode, and we talked about it in episode 9, I believe, too. Like, maybe I should be doing the art fairs like you are. And I know you're only doing one a year. Other people, like, they're all over the country. I've got he's not a photographer, but an artist friend who does acrylic paintings, and he's all over the country. He goes from Texas out to LA for these big shows and everything. And for him, it has, I assume, been a worthwhile endeavor from an income standpoint. I just personally, like, I don't want to do traveling around with a big trailer and hauling stuff and the setup and breakdown. And, do you have somebody there with you? Do you haul your spouse or partner along so you can take a bathroom break? Right. I don't mind as much of an introvert as I am. Like, I've got, basically my career was retail. The last decade or so wasn't in the retail directly side, but prior to that, I had 17 years on the sales side in a retail environment. So I've got that experience. I have no issue talking to potential clients or customers face to face. And actually, I kind of enjoy that stuff. But when I start thinking about how much, talking about upfront cost with buying equipment for art fair, like you said, you've got prints that are coming in, and typically you're going to be doing metal or acrylic, from the wow factor to get people to stop, and B, they're obviously going to be more durable to humidity and heat and different temperatures and everything compared to like a paper print. So for me personally, I have a tough time feeling like I would be justified in just doing, even if it was just like a couple local shows a year. Also, I think I've mentioned, like, Fort Worth, there is an art scene, but I don't feel like it's a big one. And there's big art fairs that take place, but the photography there, it's either one of two things. That's very heavily around travel-based photographies. Like, here's photos of beautiful old world Italian villas, or stuff like that. Or it's like hardcore into the Texas stereotypes. Like, here's your longhorn cattle in the middle of a bluebonnet field.
That is exactly what I was wondering if that was going to be, because in my head I'm thinking, what would be, that last one is exactly what I was picturing for.
Whereas my Texas photography is not that at all. Like, it's woodland. No, like, that's not what Texas is known for. So
there's not a cow in any of your shots.
So I'd almost have to change up what I'm photographing locally, and I'm stubborn, as we've talked about before. So I don't necessarily want to do that.
On that one just a second, though. Let's tangent on that, though, to play off that, because to your point, do you change what you're displaying? You're putting stuff on their website. Do you highlight something that you think maybe isn't your favorite image but would sell well? Or if you're out in a location, do you do that grand vista shot? Not so much that you fallen in love with it, but you're like, this could sell. Do you ever make decisions like that consciously in capturing the image with intent to sell it as a print? Or after you've captured your images and sort of, I'm not a huge fan, but it could sell well? What happens with that when you're deciding what to put in your print gallery online?
Yeah, I can't say I don't think I've ever, like, consciously in the field made a photo, not because I was intrigued by it, but simply because I thought I could sell it as a print. Now, maybe subconsciously, and again, I think we've talked about this in one of the early episodes where I talked about over the last couple of years, I've kind of made a conscious shift back towards making sure I am showing that broader scene, the grand vista view, in addition to the small details. So I'm not just, hey, here's these little scenes that could have been photographed anywhere, as opposed to, hey, I'm in Yosemite, here's Yosemite, but also here's the soul of it, as we talked about. I don't think I've done that consciously, but maybe subconsciously. That's part of what drew me back into shooting more of the grand landscapes. But ultimately, I still think it was more so that I just felt like I wasn't really showing the full experiences of the places I was going. As far as what I choose for the print store, that's something tricky too. And again, you've probably seen it in the Discord discussions we've had about prints, but I've got images that I don't think are that great, but they sell. And then some of my favorite images, they don't sell. So I lean towards offering more than less. I've got some images in my print store right now that, like, over time, they've just kind of fallen a little bit out of favor. Like, I really liked them at the time, but now maybe not so much as my style and my taste have changed. But I leave them up either because they've sold in the past, or I do think they've got that sales potential. Or again, you don't know. I've got so many images that I as I'm editing, I'm like, oh, I'm going to sell prints of this, and I never sell a print of it. And then I've got other images that maybe I'm kind of on the fence about. Like it's a good enough photo to share in my portfolio, and then like it gets snatched up relatively quickly in terms of being up on the site. So it's such a hard.
It's hard to predict.
It is,
right?
man.
Yeah, it's hard to predict what resonates with people. It's really weird that
and
way.
looking at it from the photographer viewpoint is very, very different from a quote unquote casual admirer looking at a photo. Like they're not going to be critiquing every little pixel and corner and distraction and everything like that. So that factors in too. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I lean more towards I'm going to err on the side of caution and then maybe have more on my print store online than what I quote unquote would if I was truly just including my favorite best of the best. And to that end too, like I've got my site, my store segmented. So if somebody clicks on shop prints, they don't go to just a dumping ground of here's all my prints in chronological order. It's I take them to a category page. So, okay, well now you can shop by location, Yosemite, Bryce Canyon, Texas, Utah, or you might be looking for scenes with water or woodland scenes or grand vistas or black and white. So I've got it all segmented there to kind of narrow it down to begin with. And I've got an artist favorite section. So, hey, if you want to see the stuff I like best, here's this. If you want to see bestsellers, here's this. So I've got it all segmented there. And I try to ensure that people kind of start from that category page, so that they're not just going into a collection of 500 plus images and either getting bored and not even scrolling through all of them or just feeling totally overwhelmed. So I try to segment it down a little bit that way.
Makes sense. So moving on to, and I think this is an interesting one, but presentation. So presentation of what you're going to deliver. What are your thoughts on that? And by this, I mean, you've got a print, and really for you, I'm thinking your box set, but how important is presentation if you're selling? I think a lot of people get, and I'm guilty of this. It's like, okay, I've got you a good paper. I've got you a good print lab. I'm happy with the print. And then I'm scurrying to like figure out how am I going to get this to them? And it's, so how important is presentation, do you think, in that whole overall customer experience?
I think it's important. I mean, obviously, especially if you're charging a premium or if you're on the higher end of the spectrum and compared to your peer set, you certainly don't want to be sending a beautiful print in a repurposed Amazon box or something like that. Like, so, when I'm shipping stuff out, it's always in a...
Feel called out.
Huh?
I feel called out.
Do you do that?
No, but that's how desperate I am. Like, do I have an unmarked box around here somewhere?
So, I mean, that's another investment though I've made. Like, I've got blank tubes sitting over there behind me. I've got my unfolded boxes for the box sets and the folios. So I at least, I know some photographers, and I think like Jack Lodge does it, and maybe Simon Baxter. Simon Baxter might just be labels, but some of them do have like bespoke boxes made with their logo on it. And don't get me wrong, it looks beautiful. I would love to do that. From a cost standpoint, I can't justify going to that extreme. So, I mean, for me, the presentation, like the box sets, the presentation aspect of it is the box set itself. So I want the shipping packaging to not look like it's used, or I've got magic marker scribbling out an old address or barcode or whatever. So I want it clean in that regard, but like I'm just sending it on a cardboard mailer. For my bigger prints, again, if it's a smaller print, it's just going in a flat envelope with a couple sheets of chipboard to add some protection, and it's going out that way. If it's a big enough print, it's going rolled, and it's just in a tube. And again, depending on the size of it and how I'm shipping it, it might be in a USPS mailer tube in addition to that with some packing material inside in that. So I'm not like doing anything like way above and beyond. Like I said, I would love to have totally bespoke, customized packaging for my prints, but I just, with what I'm selling right now, it's just not, it doesn't make sense financially. And if I did that, I'd also I feel would be justified in factoring that into my cost basis as well, and adjusting my pricing accordingly. But at the end of the day, like, I've never had anybody like, oh, I rated this a 3 out of 5 because while the print's beautiful, it came in a plain cardboard box. So, and then from a third party standpoint, like NMFA sends stuff out in wooden crates depending on the size or what have you. So you're not going to get into a fancy presentation when you're literally shipping something that's like a piece of cargo because it's got to be protected. So
exactly. Yeah, I think there's a big difference, between Amazon box with a crossed out, sharpied out address label and just a nice plain, simple brown box from that standpoint. I think just making that little leap helps with that. And that does, you mentioned shipping, that you ship flat, envelope, ship smaller prints. You roll larger prints and then drop ship the acrylics and the metals, of course. But for when you're shipping something, about where is that size? Where do you flip from flat to rolled in your mind? And this is my personal curiosity. So I'm being selfish here and trying to figure out where that line is at. How do you make that? Where do you make that cutoff?
Yeah. So when I updated my pricing earlier this year, I also did some updates to the sizes I was offering. So it used to be that my small sizes were 11 by 14, regardless of the aspect ratio. I've now added in a 13 by 19 to account for those kind of smaller prints that are in the 2-3 aspect. So those would probably be 11 by 14 and 13 by 19 would probably be the only ones I would ship flat. I was looking recently on Amazon and then Uline, because you can get bigger boxes for shipping artwork at a larger size, up to like the 16 by 20. I'd have to really look at the pricing of the shipping though, because I suspect once you get into that, trying to ship it's not necessarily going to be like an envelope box, but like a 1/2 inch or 1 inch deep box with packing, you're probably looking at some pretty pricey shipping at that point. So generally 11 by 14, 13 by 19, I ship those in the flat kind of mailer with chipboard, again, to add some rigidity. And then once I start getting up into like the 17-inch roll size and above, that's where I would start shipping them rolled. And that's a whole other thing too. Like you've got to have protective interweaving, or like I've got craft paper that I overlay over the print before I roll it. And again, that all goes into your time factor and materials and everything too.
For sure. Okay, so just a couple more. I think we're coming up on an hour here.
I'm good to go as long as you want, man. I think this is a good topic.
Okay.
I don't want you to pass out on me,
Mr. Cohen. I'm doing fine. I'm on Dayquil and Advil. So, now I've got my selfish question of whether it's flat shipped or rolled shipped, which was very helpful, by the way. Fulfillment times. We're landscape photographers. You and I were just talking at the beginning of the episode how we're recording like months in advance because we know we're both going to disappear through a chunk of October and November. Which when you're fulfilling, when you're the middleman or the creator of these prints, what kind of guidelines do you set for fulfillment times when people are ordering from you? Are those prominently displayed? What kind of communications do you have around the order? The order comes in. How does that fall with fulfillment times? How do you figure your fulfillment times? And what do you feel people's patience is for those fulfillment times?
So responding to the last question first, like I haven't ever had somebody that was like anxiously following up with me in terms of, why isn't my print here yet, et cetera, et cetera. Most people, I think, like they kind of know what they're getting into, but I do have, like when you go to one of my product pages for a print, and this is something I've got to update on my website. I've changed my product page layout. I've got to make some tweaks, but I've got sections specifically around my artist series prints, ready to hang prints, framing recommendations, and I've got print production and shipping, which for my artist series, I've got on here, like I generally produce those within 3 to 5 business days of the order being placed. However, it may vary depending on my travel schedule and availability of materials. So kind of give myself that wiggle room right there. And if I were to get an order while I was out in the field or something, like I'm going to communicate with that buyer as well.
Right.
Say, hey, thanks so much. I saw you place this order for this. FYI, I'm in Utah for the next 10 days or whatever, but I assure you this will be my first priority when I get back or what have you.
Yeah.
But I've got that stated clearly in my product information as well. So I do think communication is key, even if I'm not traveling. Like, I'd like to keep people up to date. Like, hey, I just printed your thing. And a lot of times I think I did this with when you ordered my first folio before we kind of really knew each other all that well. I sent you a photo of it being packaged up in that. So, I think it's, again, you're building that more personal relationship with somebody that A, has already made an investment. B, they might be a return buyer in the future. So you want to treat them accordingly, kind of that white glove treatment. From a shipping standpoint, I've just got, generally speaking, in the U.S., it's going to be 2-day priority mail for domestic orders. International orders are usually USPS first class, but again, might vary. A big one that I learned as I started doing some more international orders, I've got a disclaimer around customs and duties are the responsibility of the buyer, because that was
that's good.
Prior to all of the changes in the U.S. with tariffs and duties and things, that was a complete unknown to me. I had no idea that when somebody bought something, say in Canada, that they might have to spend an extra $40 to actually pick it up from the shipper, which just blew my mind. So I do have that disclaimer in there. What else? So that's pretty much in terms of like setting the expectation for ready to hang prints. I do have a larger time frame. So I've just got, you can generally expect to receive your ready to hang artwork within 4 to 6 weeks of placing your order. This allows for the submission of your order with the third-party print lab, their production and quality assurance process, and shipping. Typically it's not going to be that long, but it also, like within MFA, they do all of their printing in batches. So they wait for X number of orders to come in. Because again, from a cost and efficiency standpoint, it makes sense for them to do it all in one batch for all their customers. So depending on when you place your order, it may be almost a week before they even get to your batch. I do have a larger window there. And again, I'd rather, it's the old, under promise. Yeah, I was just like, how do I say under promise, over deliver? So 4 to 6 weeks, but hopefully they'll get it in 2 to 3, and then they'll just
be sooner.
They'll just be happy. And I've got a thing on here too. Please note shipping time can vary significantly, especially for orders placed during busier holiday seasons or for international orders, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I've got all that factored in there.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think, like you said, communication's the key. You're setting expectations up front.
Yep.
You're very clear, 2 to 4 weeks, 4 to 6, depending on this. I think you mentioned you even acknowledge I may be traveling, and like you said, if day one of the Utah trip you get a print order, just send an email. Hey, awesome, thank you. I got your order. This is where I'm at. It'll be, and you're still real close to falling within your 2 to 4.
Right.
But the person knows. Yep, it's probably gonna be the longer side of that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. It's so many customer service headaches can be mitigated by just communicate.
Yep.
If there's been a delay, I had a senior client once. I was busy season. Sent some stuff off to print for him because they did their order. Realized I had not done the skin retouching yet. So these prints show up, and I'm all like, uh-oh. And so, and I was close to when they were supposed to be delivered, and I just emailed them, and I said, hey, I made a mistake. I said, I didn't get this this retouched correctly before it went off. I said, it's going to take, I think I rushed it, so it was still like within another 3 to 5 days. But, they weren't upset at all. It was better than them seeing the print and going, what's this?
Right.
What's
or
this
you not communicating anything, and then they are sitting there wondering like, oh, I thought I'd have it by now. I mean, to me, communication is absolutely key. You are putting yourself in a retail business owners to client relationship. And this is somebody that conceivably has maybe spent several $100s, if not thousands of dollars with you for an order.
Yep.
Treat them accordingly. Like that is, we can all say, oh, I'm an introvert, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not even going to be willing to communicate with somebody that's giving you that kind of money, maybe you shouldn't be in that line of the business. But even with my third-party fulfilled prints through NMFA, I still communicate with them. Like, oh, hey, I've sent the order over. I've proofed it, and the order's been submitted. I'm just waiting on updates from them. Oh, hey, I just got the word that it's going to be printed on X day if they communicate that. I just got the shipping notification. Here's your tracking number. Nice thing with Wix, the platform I use for my website, is I can add in the tracking number and it'll send it to them automatically. If I'm doing the shipping through for an artist series print or a box set, as soon as I do the shipping, ordering, whatever you want to frame it as within the Wix platform, it handles that automatically. So once I get the tracking number, it's added into the order for my reference, and the customer gets an email with their tracking information so they can track it. But yeah, I mean, just these people are spending a not insignificant amount of money. Treat them accordingly. So that'll head off a lot of potential headaches.
Yep. And not just in the print world, anything in communication.
Right. Workshops.
Is so key. But yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah. Exactly. So, well, let's move on to, you've done the print, communicated well. Do you have a refund or a replacement policy in place for these? Can people return a print? And here's a weird one. I've seen this in some forums. People want a credit to upgrade a print to a different size. So maybe they bought a print and then they want it bigger. So just, I guess, that tail end of the process, how do you keep the customer happy? And then do you have a refund replacement policy that works for you?
Yeah, so I do have a refund replacement policy, whatever. I don't offer refunds as part of the policy. And I stress that, hey, all of these orders or all these prints are made to order. So if I allowed a cancellation / refund, there's no guarantee that especially if it was a big acrylic that I spent $2,500 ordering myself just from a cost basis, if that then got canceled, well, now I've just basically lost $2,500 because there's no guarantee I would be able to turn around and sell that anytime soon, if ever. Again, just depending on the whimsies of buyers. So exactly. I do make it very clear that sales are final due to the nature of the print production process. However, I do have a very clear policy in place for defects or damage. And obviously with my artist series prints, I'm inspecting all of them, but on the off chance I miss something or I haven't had it happen in terms of the customer receiving it, but like last year, one of the prints I produced, on my cut sheets at least, I'm able to use my little anti-static brush and remove any loose dust or paper fiber from the production process. And typically that'll ensure that the print comes out without any flaws on it. But on one of the prints, maybe it was a little flake of paper residue that just was on there just enough that I didn't catch it with the anti-static brush. And then when it came out of the printer and I'm looking at it, it either came off during the print or after I took it out and was reviewing it, there was a little, it wasn't huge, but just a little white spot on the paper where there was no ink. Again, probably a piece of residual fiber or whatever from the production process, which is bound to happen.
Right.
And I had to reproduce the print. So in those cases, I'm able to inspect my artist series prints before I package them up. And hopefully, again, I haven't had any issues with it getting to a client with an issue, but that one could have been if I hadn't looked at it carefully. From the third-party fulfillment standpoint, obviously NMFA has their own policy. I think it's, within X number of hours, I think it's 72 hours or something of delivery of the print. Basically what I've got on my website is, I think it's 72 hours, provide photos of the damage. If it was a shipping, like the crate or the box was damaged in shipping. Yeah, if it's printing defect or other blemish, happy to provide a replacement at no added cost, ready to hang artwork. Any replacements due to defects in production process will be managed by me, working directly with the lab to ensure satisfaction. And then on my full return policy, I've got a piece in there too about shipping damage. And generally what I'm looking for is just take some quick photos as evidence, and I'll work with you, and I'm not going to charge them extra or anything like that. Beyond that, I know some photographers, they'll even do lifetime replacement guarantees, where if the print gets damaged, they'll still charge for replacement, but the charge will be at cost without the profit factored into it. I think I had that at one point, but I think I got rid of it just from a logistics standpoint more than anything.
The logistics, it's tough to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if it happened in the first year or two, but if somebody reached out to me 15 years from now, I mean, my God, who knows if I could even, if the print lab's still open or if I'm still doing printing or whatever. So I felt that was a little, not restrictor's not the word, but probably a case of maybe putting myself at risk of over-promising, under-delivering if a huge amount of time had passed and then they moved and it got damaged or something. And again, I might, and all of this is to say, again, from a retail background, my policy is my policy, but if somebody reached out to me about some one-off thing, like you said, like, oh, I got a 16 by 20, but now I realize I really should have gone with a 24 by 36. Reach out. I might work with you.
Right.
Disclaimer,
Right.
I can't promise
Yep.
it, but
Right.
again, from a customer service
by
standpoint,
policy, you're
right.
covered.
Right.
Right. But if it's a situation, it's like, you know, I could make this work, keeps customer happy, and everyone walks out a winner, then, right.
Right.
You know, I think it's a good way to go.
And from all my
just
years
goes
in
back to that
customer
whole-
service, if you come out guns blazing and you're swinging for me right off the bat, I'm less likely to take care of you. But if you come to me with kindness, then
100%.
I'm much more
That is
likely
for
to
sure.
accommodate. So, yeah,
That is for
yeah.
sure.
All right. I think we're in
Cool.
the realm of wrapping up here. You got anything else? For me?
Yes, we are. So with that, I've got like one more question, and it's an often debated topic that we see in several places.
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, but limited edition prints. Some people see if I offer a limited edition print of I'm only going to make 25 of these, 50 of these, 100 of these, whatever, that it increases the value. So it's a fast way to make more money from it because it's a limited edition. What are your thoughts on limited edition prints and how they factor into the business side of printing?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is something I'm debating all of the time. I don't think, I'm trying to think back to my early days. I don't think I ever actually factored anything as limited edition. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I did. Going back to like 2018, maybe even before that, when I first set up my website. Obviously my box sets, my folios, those are limited edition, just to try to create a little bit more urgency around purchasing those. And ironically, those are really loss leaders for me, and using a retail term, meaning if I were to truly account for my time and materials cost is covered and part of my time is covered, but yeah, we're talking about with the box set, 12 prints, for $150. That's what I charge for 111 by 14. So obviously I'm trying to like offer something that's a better value for those people that are maybe a little bit more cost conscious or don't have it in their budget to get an individual print, knowing full well that I am not quote unquote properly accounting for what the price should be on those box sets. And I'm also at a point where I'm not a Ben Horn. I'm not selling them out in a matter of weeks or months.
Right.
My volume 1 is still available. So anyways, the only thing I've done limited edition is those, and I've thought about this so much, and ultimately what it comes down to is, in the day and age of digital printing, there's no reason for limited edition other than marketing or your own personal desire to just not be beholden to always having to print X print forevermore.
Right. Right.
And much like pricing your prints at a premium can potentially spur some people to be more interested. The main reason for doing limited edition, aside from producing traditional film prints where you do have a finite number that you can produce before you would start having degradation or whatever, the only reason to do it is strictly marketing and marketing both from hey, I've got a way to market this as limited edition, but also that consumer perception of urgency.
Yes.
It's right now, I'm once again, like for the last couple of weeks, I've been going round and round in my mind about this. I don't see any reason to do limited edition on my third party fulfilled prints. For me being the metal and acrylics, I have thought at 12:24 p.m. on September 12th, I am maybe like 60-40 towards switching my artist series prints to limited. I've my general response when this has come up is like, well, all my prints are limited edition because I'm going to die someday. So, in that regard, like every Michael Wrong photography print out there is limited in some way, shape, or form. The artist series, since it is, to me, and I'm trying to like think of how to frame this without sounding like a egotistical jerk, but like they're more special in that I'm actually the one producing it.
Yep.
I have been leaning a little bit towards doing limited edition. A, because of the more personal nature of them. B, again, strictly from a commercial marketing, trying to drive some time-bound urgency with a potential buyer. If I did it, the other piece of limited edition is, well, how many limited editions do you do? Is it limited by the image itself? Is it limited by,
right.
I'll offer X number of each size. So
right.
11 by 14, it's edition whatever of 50. 16 by 20, right. It's edition whatever of 50 or 25 or whatever arbitrary number you set. Some photographers will say, oh, it's 100 or 300. That ain't really limited
right.
edition, because realistically,
right, you're probably not going to sell.
I don't know very many photographers are selling even 20 prints of the same image.
Right. Yep.
So if I go that route for my artist series, like I'd probably fall more on the side of truly limited, like 25. I don't think I'd go as low as 10, because the other thing I don't want to do is, like, I want people to have my work. So if I were to set it at a limited edition of 10, whether it be for the entire print or an individual size, and then that 11th person comes in and is like, oh, I want that print, I need it this size, and it's not available. Like, maybe they would buy a bigger size or a smaller size, but maybe they wouldn't. And now I've lost the opportunity to have a piece of my artwork displayed in somebody's home or office or whatever. So is that really the path I want to go? As you can tell, I'm still very conflicted on this.
Yes.
I just, it's also the logistical piece of it. Like, now you've really got to track all that stuff. And with my site being with Wix, I can do it easily. I can set an inventory level. That's how I do my box sets and my folios. It's just, I have, okay, there's 25 copies in my inventory. Oh, I've sold 2. Now there's 23. Like, I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
The site handles all that for me and handles the tracking of it. If I were to ever move away from Wax, if I were to ever move away from Wix as my website platform, then I would have to export all of my sales data and create a spreadsheet of how many of each I've sold and how many editions I've got left. That would be a huge pain. Some people just track it on spreadsheets and don't worry about managing inventory through the site, and they'll just manually shut it off or whatever. I don't know. Like, the artist series is the one piece that's always kind of like been in the back of my mind. Like, maybe given the special nature isn't the phrase I want to use. I just can't come up with any better. But given the,
it's that hand touch to it,
given the more
the artist touch,
personal involvement, and hopefully that's something that people out there care about, that I physically produced it myself. Like, should that be limited edition? Maybe that's the one where I fall back to thinking on a regular basis, like maybe I should do limited edition. I've also thought, like, my 11 by 14s, for instance, and I guess now that I've added the 13 by 9 option as well, like, those, if we talk about, like, if I just sold, those are my lowest price point, obviously they're my smallest size individual prints. If I were to sell 100 of those, at the end of the day, like, it'd be decent income, but it's just because of the dollar price point, like, it's not going to be a huge amount of income. So do I just make those smallest ones limited? Like, hey, I'm only offering 10 11 by 14s or 10 13 by 19s. That way I'm still offering that lower price point for somebody that wants a print, but maybe doesn't have the financial ability to make that bigger investment on a bigger print size, or they just don't have the room for it. But I'm limiting not my risk, my exposure to being trapped into having to produce a higher volume of prints that may not be ultimately worth it financially. I can't price myself out of the market to say, oh, well, I'll offer 11 by 14s, but to make sure it's really worth my time, if I had to produce 10 of them, I'll bump the price up $100. Like, then nobody's going to buy them, most likely. So, I mean, I've looked at it from all kinds of variables, and I still don't know what I'd do. Right now, like I said, I'm leaning a little bit towards making my artist series prints limited edition. But again, at the end of the day, it would be for artificial reasons. Again, there's no technical limitation to producing a print from a digital file. So I can produce them today. I could produce them 20 years from now. I don't have kids, but if my nieces and nephews wanted to produce them after I'm gone, like, they could do so.
Yep.
So it would strictly be from a commercial / personal preference standpoint. Yeah, I go back and forth on it. And then also like, okay, for the prints I've already sold some of, the certificates of authenticity those people received were framed as open editions. So do I start the limited edition run at print 1, or do I account for the open edition version that I already sold? And then also like I have prints for myself, or if I want to give one away, or I have one presented in a gallery, like all these other nuances and potential headaches kind of come up as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Even with my box sets, like I don't offer 8x10s as standalone prints. So those, like each print is numbered 1 of 25 or 3 of 25 or whatever box edition it is.
Right.
And I don't offer those 8x10s any other way. So like that's easy enough because I don't have to worry about it bleeding over into selling it individually or whatever at that size.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot of rabbit holes with it too. That it's just like, do I want to add more administrative work onto my plate? It wouldn't be a ton, quite honestly, but it would be, just one more thing to worry about on the back end, as opposed to editing my Smoky Mountain photos or whatever. So,
Right.
So yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. Like so many things with photography, I know people hate this answer, but it depends. It
really does. It really does. There's a lot of variables and factors into it.
Yeah.
So, well, that was a pretty good discussion, I think. I mean, I think we covered a whole lot about the business side of printing, from how to figure your costs and how to get to your price point and things to consider, and the logistics of fulfillment and shipping and printing yourself, and the whole customer experience all the way through. So I think it was a good conversation. Yeah. Hopefully it helped folks out who are considering selling their prints as part of a business.
Yeah, it was a longer discussion, but again, just like with that limited edition, like you think it's a simple topic, but then you get into it and it's like, well, here's the 50 variables that you need to consider. So, but no, and again, as usual, if anybody's got questions or their own viewpoints on limited versus open edition, or using a third party versus doing it yourself, whatever, we'll once again plug joining us over on the Patreon community. Yes. Again, you can join the community for free. You just got to become a free follower. And of course, we would love for you to make a monthly pledge as well to support the podcast financially. But we want everybody to be able to and be involved in these episode discussions, and would love to hear from you. So please join us over there on Patreon. Patreon.com/shutternonsense is the link you'll find us, but of course it's in the show notes as well. Otherwise, I think, Jeffrey, we had mentioned last week, we're kind of starting to kick around ideas for 2026 workshops. I know I owe you some answers on that as well. From a personal us standpoint, stay tuned for that stuff too, or it's probably already out, because again, we're recording this in September and you'll get this
hopefully it's out
in December. This is such a mess. But anyways, if you're thinking that you're going to ask me a question about what's going on in my life at this point in time, just remember this point in time was 3 months ago as you're listening to this stuff. I think that's all we got. So anything you want to wrap up with, Jeffrey?
Nope. I think it's time to shut her down.
All right. Glad you made it through the episode. As usual, I'm starving, so I'm going to go eat lunch. Everybody, once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Join us over on Patreon. And until next time, take care.